Hey everyone. Please support what I do to help keep Greyhawk alive by subscribing to the channel. Also, please consider becoming a channel member to get early access to videos, exclusive live chats, quarterly adventure modules, and more. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
So it has been quite some time since I've continued my read-through of the Guide to the World of Greyhawk, and that's just what we're going to do today on Greyhawk Boxed. So when last we left the Guide to the World of Greyhawk, with my well-worn copy with the cover torn off, we had left off, finished up with the Ulick states. So now we move on to Ul. This is a Backlunish state in the west. There's a little kind of a valley between a small sprue of mountains called the Ul Sprue and the Barrier Peaks, and this is where the Ul tribes live. A strong tribal clan of Paynim nomads found the rich area between the Barrier Peaks and the Ul Sprue Mountains, provided them with ample grazing and a perfect territory to settle in. So basically, the Ul is a sort of a subset of the Paynims who we talked about earlier. They're nomads on horseback, sort of analogous to the Mongols, I guess. Um, and the thing about the Uli, as they're called, is that they're only semi-nomadic, right? Right? Because they've kind of settled in this smaller area. They have towns. They have for trade and so forth. So they're much less nomadic than their cousins to the west and the south. Um, the numbers of the Uli, there's 100,000 of them. So even here there's these vast numbers of these nomads. Um, the numbers of the Uli enable them to field a strong force of cavalry and still protect their town and villages with tough infantry. So they've gotten so settled that they actually have non-infantry, not non-cavalry, which is interesting. They do have a capital city, Ulukand, um, which I believe is sort of reminiscent of what is it, Samarkand. Was a famous town on the Spice Road, I think, something like that. So it's quite an evocative thing. Then we move on to the two Ernst states, right? There's the county of Ernst and there's the Duchy of Ernst. These are the two states here on the eastern shores of the near dive, where we have the county of Ernst is the northern one and the Duchy is the southern one. Um, both used to be part of Niron back when Niron was vast and huge, and then when Niron lost its outer territories, they Ernst decided they wanted to be independent, but they still have very strong ties. There's a population of 200,000. They do have a lot of halflings there. Radagast City is one of the is the capital, and it's ruled by the Countess Belisica of Ernst. Ernst is interesting because it's actually featured in the original Gord the Rogue book, Saga of Old City. It's the first place he really goes after he leaves Greyhawk, and it's a very it's a very evocative account because it shows how the you can tell by the architecture that you're somewhere new, which I always thought was a great idea of how you can convey to your players that you are not just in any other town. Now you're seeing, for example, the all the buildings have these high peaked roofs or whatever. You can kind of make those distinctions and kind of have a more evocative feel. And if you do use art, you can do that too. Like you could associate all the if you get pictures of like medieval Bavaria, those could be associated with one of the countries in your campaign. And if you get pictures of like medieval England, which is going to have different architecture, those are going to look different, and those would be for a different country. It's just something I've always toyed with, but I love the idea of it, and I've tried to do it sometimes in my maps when I'm mapping out towns and such. You can tell just by looking at the outlines of the buildings that these are different than a town over there. Um, the land is ruled by the House of Geller, which is a name that we hear in the Gore of the Road books again, obviously. And speaking of which, the capital Radagast City is obviously named after Radagast the Brown in Lord of the Rings. But House of Geller, which is obviously Geller is the bard who's Gord's friend and ally in the books, but they don't make any particular association with Ernst, except I do believe that they say that he does serve the Countess of Ernst, so maybe he is part of a cadet branch of the family or whatever. Um, the country is allied to and under the protection of the Duchy of Urnst, but its ruler is by no means subservient to the Duke, who is seeking to marry his eldest son to the Countess and thus permanently unite the land into one realm. I love how you can, with that one little sentence, you have this whole political situation set up. Where it's like they're they're under the protection of them, but they're not subservient to them, and there's this marriage intrigue going on along there too. So there's a lot to work with if you're of a mind to do those kinds of courtly intrigue kind of adventures. This is a great place to do it. And then we're followed, of course, by the Duchy of Ernst, which is led by Karl, the Duke of Ernst, Warden of the Oberalls, which is that uh, uh, line of hills there just to the east of the city of Greyhawk and the south of the Near Dive. It's got another population of 200,000. The capital is called Lukish, which I believe is probably a nod to Gary's son, Luke Gygax, who's very prominent in gaming at the moment. A lot of demi-humans, halflings, gnomes, and dwarves, because a lot of the land is in those hills. And there's also a lot of mining and a lot of silver, electrum, gold, platinum, and gems. It actually says even the prized corundum gems, and I've never heard of a corundum gem. It might be a real thing, it might be just something made up here. Whatever it is, I don't think we hear about it ever again. So it's just one of those little things that he likes to sprinkle in there. Um, when the Nyrendel won their independence, they took the County Ernst and were massing troops to cross the Nesser, but the first crossings were turned back by galleys, and the campaign sputtered in the later in the year, never to be restarted. So this was um, uh, uh, this is all part of the history of the breakup of the Great Kingdom and the wars between Nairon and Erdi. The Duke. Let's see here now. Ernst has plenty of other problems of a continuing nature in the Cairn Hills. It's Cairn Hills border with Greyhawk, the Outer Isles frontier, which has desert nomad raiders and difficulty with the Lakemen of the Near Dive. He has an excellent army of borderers and a centrally located force of cavalry, and he distrusts Nairon because Nairon tried to recapture them. So it's a very interesting dynamic there. We've got the county of Ernst, which is a little friendlier to Nairon, still independent, but not that. But then the duchy, who is the protector of the county, doesn't like Nairon. So you got a whole lot of intrigue going on there. Next, we move to the Valley of the Mage, which is actually off the map, off to the edge there on my map. This is an interesting one because there are no fewer than three or four versions of the Valley of the Mage. The one that's in here, um, his most magical authority, the Exalted Mage of the Valley and Laird of the Domain, does not have a name. Maybe a population of 10,000, possibly elves and gnomes. No, everything's unknown. Right. Long ago, a mighty wizard secluded himself in the lush valley at the headwaters of the Javan River amidst the barrier peaks. His servants posted the approaches to the area, warning all alike that the entrance to the domain was thus established and was forbidden, yada, yada, yada. And there are, of course, tales of bold adventurers returning, loaded with platinum and gems, which are said to litter stream beds as pebbles do elsewhere. But even these stories are insufficient to cause much interest, as the area is positively known to be inhabited by horrible monsters. So the thing with this is there was also later on a whole source book for the Valley of the Mage, and there they go into a great deal of detail about who the mage is, how things are organized there, his various servants. There's towns of valley elves and gnomes and so forth. And it's honestly a little lackluster. It doesn't contradict anything that's in here. None of them do because this one is so vague. But yeah, when I think one of the things I liked best about it when it was still unknown was that it was unknown. Right, it was left up to the DM. Oh, there's this mysterious archmage in a valley somewhere. Okay, fine. That is a perfect setup for a DM to do his own thing and go wild with it. But then they kind of they took away the mystery by doing this source book, and there's this Drow woman who's his right hand man, and There's all kinds of, stuff going on there, but it's not really, I don't find it particularly satisfying. There's also, in the Gord the Rogue books, there's a whole other version of the Valley of the Mage, because they visit it in one of the books, and there the mage is actually the demiurge, and the term comes from a Gnostic religion back in the classical period, and into the Christian period, where the world is seen to be kind of debased and evil, and it was created by sort of an evil creator who created the world, and there's this good creator who created that, and there's kind of layers. And the demiurge is the name of the person who created the world, as opposed to the person who actually created all of reality. It's kind of complex, but anyway, that's where the term comes from, and he's set up to be this very high level, very powerful, almost probably a hero deity, or a quasi deity or something like that of his own right. And uh, he's on the side of neutrality, wants to keep things balanced. He's aiding Gord and so forth, and trying to stop Thorozden. And that's a lot better, because it's still kept a little bit mysterious as to what his true nature is. But it's I still like the idea that it remains to be filled in by the DM. That's my own personal thinking on it. Um, and let's see. And next up, last for today, we're going to go with Veluna, the Archclericy. This is here on the map. It's the very close ally of Furiondi. Um, and it's ruled by His Venerable Reverence, the Canon of Veluna, Hazen, Shepherd of the Faithful. The capital's Mitric. They have a population of 250,000, excluding the Viscounty of Verbabank, which is a vassal of the of Veluna, and which we will get to in the next episode of this. They've got lots of foodstuffs, and there's a lot of high elves and gnomes and so forth who live there. But basically, Veluna is one of those, good kingdoms, where you see a lot of knights in shining armor, and it's an archclericy, and they serve uh, a powerful good god who keeps changing. They, some sources say it's Rao, and some sources say it's something else, and I don't think they've ever really nailed it down definitively, because there's conflicting sources on it. I think Rao does make a lot of sense, as the patron deity, but arguments can be made for others as well. Um, and it also features Veluna features prominently in the horde of in the battle against elemental evil. The Battle of Emerald Meadows, and the Siege of the Temple and so forth. And agents of Veluna are in Hamlet and the surrounding area, trying to keep an eye on things, and so forth. Um, uh, uh, so since the state became independent, it is treated fairly and justly with its neighbors, and championed the cause of righteousness everywhere. The Archclericy aids Bissell, High Folk, and the gnomes of the Cron Hills, and is on very close terms with Furiondi. There are 7 noble houses in the Archclericy, um, and um, the semi-independent Viscount of Verbabank, which I mentioned, is a willing vassal of the state, and his inclusion in the council makes an eighth. Then it talks about the army. One of the really cool things, a deep cut, if you will, back in the early 80s, Minifigs had a line of World of Greyhawk miniatures in 25 millimeter. And one of the miniature sets that they had was the Steadfast Pike, and it came from Veluna. So there's this unit that's actually named Pikeman, and they just from the name, I infer that they got their name because they wouldn't retreat in the face of some enemy. So I loved that, and I actually included that in my Battle of Emerald Meadows game that I run at conventions. So that's a little bit of a neat thing. So anyway, there we are. I'm going to stop there. Next time we'll probably finish up with the Nations. So I know not everybody loves these. I know some people, but the people who do like them a lot. So I do want to continue. I do want to finish up the book if I can. So anyway, hope you're all having a wonderful day, and hope you like this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and stay safe from Pinkertons.
Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.